Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Coach Adam, what's going on?
Hey, John, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. Really excited to have you on. And obviously the platform you've built with Rising Coaches is incredible. And I've been a member for the last few months. And obviously having you on the show, talking about the cool stuff you're doing now, and obviously what got you to this point is going to be a lot of fun. I know our listeners, our rising Gen Zers or rising Gen Z professionals are going to really enjoy the work you're doing with Rising Coaches.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on and excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. So, to kind of start off, now you've maybe risen as a coach per se, but at one point, right, you were a rising coach yourself and you were studying kinesiology and exercise science at the University of Tampa. So I'm curious, right? That's something maybe where from that, right, where you're studying that in school or from being a student at Tampa, what made you realize that coaching was what you wanted to do? And is it something you always knew you always knew you were going to end up going into coaching?
Yeah, I think I knew at a pretty young age that I wanted to coach, probably by the time I was like 13 or 14. And then when I was like 16, I became very determined to live out that dream. So I went to University of Tampa because of the basketball program there. And I knew I'd have an opportunity to work with the team. They were a great Division II school. It's in Tampa, Florida, which helps. And that's really what brought me there. And it was an unbelievable experience. Tampa's a great place, great city, great school. The campus is beautiful and just so many good people, which of course is at the end of the day, what it's all about, right?
100%. That's definitely a huge thing in terms of the motivation for most people. And it's crazy to think that, right, you were thinking that at 13, 14, 15, 16, when most people are just so focused on playing and tunnel visioned on that or in any other capacity that they kind of forget that, okay, well, there's so much to do in basketball other than that, right, when you're done. And that's kind of what it is. It's about being a young coach. Kind of keying in on Tampa while you're a student there. What was that like, kind of juggling both at the same time? It's something that most people never do, right? They wait until after school to become GAs or something like that. And obviously that's a super unique experience. I'm curious how that played out for you.
Yeah, I was a manager, so I went there so of course I played growing up. I played in high school. I was average at best, right? And then I went to University of Tampa. I was going to try to walk on, but I knew that, my chances would be slim because of how good the team was. And so, 1A, 1B was to hey, if the playing thing doesn't work out, I'm going to be a manager and get some hands-on experience with the team, with the coaching staff, and just be around it. And that's what happened. I tried out. I didn't make it. I continued to work on my game. I tried out for my first 2 years there. As soon as they cut me, they were like, hey, you're not going to make the team, but we got a spot for you as a manager. I had already expressed interest in wanting to be a coach and learn. And so I just really transitioned right into that role. And it was great. It's definitely a balancing act. The team was my priority. I was probably a learning coach first and a student second. Actually, it was probably my priorities were probably, and this is not something I'd recommend, but it was probably basketball, social life, school. And, that was a balancing act. And, I was scrambling at times to make it all work. But, I loved it. I just loved every second of it. And so it didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like I was working my whole way through college. I was doing what I loved. And, it was really cool because it is a smaller program. I got to do so much, I know a lot of people go to these big Division I schools and they get their start that way. And that's cool. And you're around great people and really high level people, but you're on a staff of 15 to 20 people. And so what you get to do is so limited compared to at Tampa, it was the head coach, it was 2 assistants, and it was me. And so I got to do everything. I got to go recruiting as a college sophomore. I took the NCAA test and they said, here, go find us some players. And I got to work guys out. And it really was a dream come true for me at that time. And again, just great memories there and had a lot of fun.
It's so cool thinking about being a part of a small program, but having those extra perks of obviously being really ingratiated into the program and everything that they do. So, definitely you got so much more experience doing that than most of the people would in another situation. How did that kind of play in with right when you get out of college, you're an assistant coach at all these other schools and kind of just living that dream of being a coach? How did those initial skills from doing everything transfer into maybe doing something a little more specific?
It's funny, John, when I was a senior and getting ready to graduate and try to find a real job, at that age, I thought I was going to go tackle the basketball world. I was going to be the GA at Duke. And if that didn't work out, my backup plan was North Carolina, just completely unrealistic and didn't realize like how difficult it was. I went to the Final Four, which is like the big coaches convention. I went with our assistant coach, Mark Olson from the University of Tampa, and he was really good to me and took care of me and took me around. And it was in Indianapolis, and we were walking down the sidewalk in Indianapolis. And, you know, at these conventions, you stop and talk to people all the time. And Mark stopped and was talking to a junior college head coach, Tim Ryan. And I had never met him before. And he's like, hey, this is Adam, blah, blah, blah. And Mark, being like a great mentor, was just like, hey, this is Adam. Like, he's looking for a job. Do you know of anything? And he was like, actually, I need an assistant coach. We're about in Ocala, which is 2 hours away. He's like, when you get back from the Final Four, why don't you drive up and we'll spend a day and I'll show you around campus. And this is how stupid I was, John. I left that conversation. I remember telling Mark Olson, like my mentor at the time, like, hey, like, I'm not going to do this, a junior college job. Like, no, I'm not interested in that. And he's like, Adam, you got to get your ass in the car and drive up there and check it out before you make any decisions. And so I did. And I was like blown away. I mean, like, Tim Ryan's a Hall of Famer, which I didn't know that at the time, Hall of Fame coach, and like had that program down to a science, and just being there for the afternoon or half a day or whatever it was. By the time I left, I was like, I got to be a part of this. This looks amazing. It was that lucky of being in the right place at the right time. It was also like having somebody like push me through my closed-mindedness to like be open to like listening and learning about an opportunity that wasn't in my like brain as my master plan, because it never works out like that. And so I'm super grateful for that. And that experience was awesome. Junior college assistant coach for 2 years, great program. You know, again, I got to do, it was just me and the head coach. I got to do everything. The cool thing about JUCO is you meet so many people because you got all these Division I and Division II coaches in your gym recruiting your players. And so, you know, my network just, you know, tripled in size, quadrupled, whatever. I just met so many people in those 2 years. And it really led to my next job, which was a GA spot at Clemson. And my head coach, Tim Ryan, was really good friends with one of the assistants at Clemson, Josh Pastorino, and he made the call for me and was lucky enough to get that job too.
It's awesome how it all works out. And it's a curious of don't judge a book by its cover. Right? You just hear the title of a school or the level of a school and you go, no, okay, I don't want to do that. No, actually, if you take a deeper look, maybe that might be your dream job. That might be the job that leads up to everything else that could really change your life. So it's interesting. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because it does paint a picture, not just of how you got into the spot you were, but also the decision process on your part, because not everything's an easy decision. A lot of times you have to really think critically about it to make the right one. So, I mean, of course, before we go into rising coaches, I mean, maybe a lot of the coaching stuff that you primarily focus on, you do also do a lot of stuff with athletic directors and maybe that side of managing the game on that kind of more administrative level. So after you were done coaching at Clem, as a GA at Clemson, and I noticed you were director of operations at a few different schools. I mean, what did that transition look like for you, and always being so set on coaching, but now maybe seeing a different side of things?
Yeah, the ops position. So that's just like one of the steps on the ladder that you got to climb to become a head coach. And so, you know, I took those ops jobs, you know, for that reason. But it was a great experience. I was the ops guy at Northern Colorado, and then I was the ops guy at Mississippi State. And those are two completely different jobs, even though it's the same title. I'll give you this as the example I always give people. When you're the ops guy at Northern Colorado, if there's like a light bulb out in the locker room, you go grab a ladder and you change the light bulb. When you're the ops guy at Mississippi State, the staff is so big, the athletic department is so big, you're just overseeing all that stuff and communicating. And I mean, you're sitting in like high level meetings with the athletic director and the communications director, and they're talking about big football weekends and game day is going to come on campus. And so here's where the parking is going to happen. Here's where we funnel recruits. And it really gives you like insight into like how to run a program, almost like a CEO or like a 30,000 foot view. I always say, like, if you want to be a head coach, you definitely should have experience in the ops role. You get, sometimes as a coach, you get tunnel vision on like, we got to get good players. We got to get our players better. And when you're the ops guy, you have to see the big picture. You're the liaison between the program and the community and the athletic department. And so there's just so many moving pieces that you're in charge of. And, you know, it was great. It was a great experience that I really, really enjoyed and learned a lot from.
The pursuit of winning can definitely cloud a lot of people's judgment, and seeing it from that big picture of, you know what, maybe there's a little bit more to this game or to this program than just winning basketball games. It definitely does open up everything and make you think so much more clearly about what direction the program's going, instead of just maybe the basketball team itself. As a one-year team, look at it more as like a program with history and of course, most importantly, with a future. But the first thing about, so you had all these experiences, got to take all the lessons from all these different roles. Where did rising coaches come from? Is it something you thought of right away, or did it just kind of spur the moment you thought of it and you put it into motion?
Yeah, it was actually when I was at Clemson as the GA there. Myself and our video coordinator, Andy Farrell, we shared an office, which was really like a storage closet that they converted into an office for us. And we'd sit in there, and there was this event called Villa 7 back in the day where they would tab like the next wave of up and coming coaches, and they would fly them out to this conference and introduce them to athletic directors. It was such a cool thing. And of course, like we were never on this like list, but we'd sit there and look at it every year and be like, how can we get to something like this? Like, what do we got to do to get there? And so finally one day we just said, you know what, we're gonna start our own thing. We're gonna try to provide these great resources and connections to other people, but we're gonna make it open to everybody. We're not gonna make it exclusive, and you're not gonna have to like pass some sort of test to get in, the magic gate. We're just going to open the doors. And that's really how it started. We started with a conference in Las Vegas. And that first year, I think there were like 30 people there. This is like back in 2010. And to see like where those 30 people are now is unbelievable. You got assistant GMs for NBA teams, GMs of G League teams, head Division I coaches out of that original 30. And then each year it just grew and kind of took on a life of its own. And I mean, that's really how it started. And now it's grown into so much more, but that was really the origin of it.
That's so cool thinking of it as a thing with 30 people. And now it's turned into so many things, a website, a podcast. So we're going to jump into kind of talking about all those things, because that's all the way that you kind of help share the game and grow the game and build that network for rising coaches for the rising coaches community as a whole. Thinking more so as to like what really is like mission of rising coaches, as to like maybe what made you, once you got it off the ground and started running it, saying, you know what, this is actually something really serious. Like, let's keep this thing going. This is kind of where we see this thing growing into.
Yeah. So for the first 9 years of our business, it was just that. It was just those events. Like we did that conference, and then we held like a party at the Final Four every year. And that was it. And people loved it. And they just kept asking, like, how can we be a part of it? How can we do more? I think we really tapped into a void in the industry where there's nothing geared towards like dudes who are trying to make it. It is a very, very hard industry, very competitive, and like there's so few resources. And so it's clear like early on that we had something special, but because we were like coaching ourselves, we didn't have time to put to grow it into anything more than those two events. And then in 2019, I decided to step away from coaching. And I just kind of took a leap of faith and said, let me just do this full time. Let me see if I can grow it into, there's something more that everyone's been talking about for the last 10 years. And so, yeah, that's really when we took it to another level. We created a membership platform where people can share ideas, they can connect with each other. They've got access to the 11 plus years of content that we collected. It's when we launched our, Rising Coaches Search and Consulting business, where we get involved with coaching searches. It's when we launched our mentorship program. I mean, it's really when it exploded into something greater than what it was. It's really the thing that makes it so unique is, it's not like my company. It's like everybody that's been a part of the organization since 2010. Everyone's taken ownership of it, and they feel like it's truly theirs, and that's what makes this thing special.
Oh, it's so special. And of course, I mean, when you have that kind of sense of community and the sense of family, maybe amongst people that all have that same common goal, I mean, that's beautiful. And that's kind of what makes it go, as opposed to maybe anything else kind of being the fuel for that. I mean, and you've kind of mentioned it at the beginning about some of the people maybe that started with it and have since gotten to whatever levels. I mean, what I think is so cool about Rising Coaches is you guys deal with, whether it's youth coaches, high school, college, the pros. You mentioned a few of them, but who are some of those people maybe that started at the beginning, maybe they were super young, and then rose to almost the highest level of the game?
I mean, there's so many like success stories like that. It's hard to remember them all, but I mean, just a couple off the top of my head. I remember Andy Birdsong was a GA at Florida State when he showed up the first year, and now he's the assistant GM with the Brooklyn Nets. After having been the assistant GM with the Spurs until a couple years ago. Jimmy Oakman was a high school coach when he first showed up, and now he's an assistant coach with the Nets as well, coincidentally enough. Josh Krybish was a volunteer GA, I believe, going into an ops job at Northern Arizona. Now he's the GM of the Bulls G League team. Mike Fly was a video coordinator. Now he's the head coach of Florida Gulf Coast. Adam Cullen was a video coordinator. Now he's the head coach, or the associate head coach at Stanford. So, I mean, really, there's just so many success stories. And that's the coolest part of it is, just the fact that we get to have a little bit of a hand in these guys' journeys, and they continue to like feel like they're part of us is what's really, really, really rewarding.
That, I mean, it's awesome. And all the names you mentioned, a lot of those people have either been on the show in the past, have been reached out to about coming on the show in the past, or in some ways, obviously they've all reached that level to where it's just obviously super cool that they're doing all that cool stuff, and they've become maybe staples or icons in the industry, which is kind of comparing that to where they started is of course just super cool thinking about that. I mean, I'm also curious then though, I mean, you've also expanded the company in so many other different ways, not just with the conference and not just with the program, but whether it's maybe the podcast that you started recently and all these other different avenues. I mean, can you kind of explain those and maybe what prompted you to say, you know what, we have a good thing going. People are getting cool jobs out of the conference that we're running. Let's see what a podcast would look like. Let's see what this other form of content distribution would look like. And that because that's really all that sort of series of evolution is what's really allowed it to continue for the last 11 years and take it over the top.
Yeah, the podcast has been cool. I started it in 2017. So before I left coaching, I was the associate head coach at SEMO at the time. And yeah, I had listened to podcasts. I kind of enjoyed them myself. And I could see that that's where media was going. And I said, let me take a stab at this. Let's interview people and just do it for fun out of my office. And so, yeah, that's literally how it started. I learned a lot, as you know, running a podcast. We learned a lot about, how to market and how to, produce content. And it got better and better. And I mean, it's been amazing. It's probably the number one driver for us, for new members, is our podcast. I mean, again, what started off as me talking to my coaching buddies has turned into like a top 25, sports podcast in the US. It's got over 100,000 listeners. I mean, it's been incredible to think that it's got so much reach, but it's been, powerful. And in the search firm, the Rising Coaches Search and Consulting, again, like as early as that first year after our conference, we would get calls from coaches and people saying like, hey, we've got this open job. I need someone really, really good. Like, do you have anyone you can recommend? And we did that for 10 years. And, again, when I left coaching, I said, this needs to be part of it. Like, we need to be helping not just with these like assistant coaching jobs and these GA jobs, but like we need to be helping place head coaches and help schools hire like head coaches, because we do have this insight into like who's really, really good in the industry. And a lot of times athletic directors don't know who to go with and who's a good fit and how to attract those candidates. And so, yeah, we launched the search firm about a year and a half ago, and we've done about 15 searches to this point. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's one of the parts of the job that I enjoy most for sure is, when you get to help with the hire. And what's cool, and I didn't anticipate this, is I thought I'd just be doing basketball searches just because that's what I know. But we did some basketball searches, and then we had some ADs call us back and they said, hey, you did such a good job for us with our basketball search. Can you help us find a women's soccer coach? Can you help us find a lacrosse coach? I was like, I don't even know the rules to lacrosse, but sure, like I'll try to figure it out. But coaching's coaching, and it's a small fraternity, and so that's been fun, and it's been cool to get to know these incredible people in other sports as well.
I definitely have no idea any of the rules of lacrosse either, so we're both in the same boat there. But I mean, it's still cool that you can still help someone and do something with the network that you've built in that same way, which is I think is awesome. And then kind of just thinking about maybe just obviously with the platform that it's in 2021, so much has changed. But I mean, right now, I mean, obviously COVID definitely made it hard for those in-person events. What are some of the other things you guys are maybe doing now? Maybe right now we're in June, but over the next few months, what's really going to be happening that's really going to continue to grow that network out?
Yeah, well, we are getting back to in-person events, which I'm super excited about. Obviously, like you said, we had to pause that and go strictly virtual for the last year and a half. And so June 17th and 18th, we'll be in Phoenix for our Rising Coaches Conference West. We have got an unbelievable lineup for that. And then July 6th to the 7th, we'll be in Atlanta for a conference out there right before the AAU period starts. And so excited for those events. If people want more information on that, they can find it on our website, risingcoaches.com. So that's a big part of it. And then in the fall, we're going to launch a few things that we're excited about. We've got a GA training course we're going to release and provide a resource for head coaches to give to their GAs, because again, that's like the entry-level spot for coaches. And there's really no resources or training out there for that. That's something that we've been working on all summer that we're excited about. And then we've got a couple other things that, we'll release details, kind of in the coming months that we've been working hard on.
Definitely can't wait to see all this new content. It's going to be a lot of fun, right? Just obviously there's been so much growth already, but it's going to only keep going up. So, I mean, just looking forward to all that stuff and maybe going to an event or two myself is really just making me really hopeful for the future of not just rising coaches, but coaches in general, right? There's a lot of cool stuff happening in the industry. Coach Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show, because this was really, really cool and giving a breakdown, not just on your career, but also maybe the impact you've had on, I'm sure, so many coaching careers and so many lives. So thank you so much for coming on, and definitely can't wait to hopefully see you at an event soon.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.